Hi, this is Samantha Clark, and this is my screencast on effective instruction in the ELA classroom. First, I will be talking about improving ELA learning through evidence-based instruction. We've been reading SCHMOKER throughout the years so far, and he argues that ELA instruction should include literacy development, instruction founded on evidence, and balanced skills and standards. One major argument he has is that we can't expect that all other subject areas are appropriately integrating literacy instruction, whether or not that is a requirement in our state. As ELA teachers, it is our job to improve the literacy of our students by teaching reading, writing, and conversation. All instruction that we focus on should be founded on evidence. Just like doctors, we have to keep up to date with practices so that we are as effective as possible in our professions. And we should balance transferable skills and the California Common Core standards because both are equally important, but we need to refine them and focus on what is the most important. So reading instruction should be broad and abundant reading. They should be reading as much as possible so they get used to the process. They should be reading literature, nonfiction, and literary nonfiction. We can't just expect that other classes are going to be reading nonfiction, so we have to incorporate all three throughout our classes. We need to prevent read-aside, the constant reading, constant effort reading just for analysis, and constant reading just for grasping concepts. We have to include enjoyment, that aesthetic reading quality. We have to have a balance of genres. So if we're picking a handful of AP texts, we need to ensure that there are a variety of genres to keep up effectiveness and to build their schema. We need to build reading stamina. This happens along with the broad, abundant reading and the constant reading. Students need to learn how to continually read, to grasp concepts, not to drone on content. We need to incorporate discussion with every book, with every nonfiction piece, with every article. Therefore, we're building critical thinking skills. And we need to provide guiding questions that are to be answered throughout the reading to give reading a purpose. His focus is on writing instruction, is that writing is always a response to texts, that there should always be clear expectations and rubrics, and that we always introduce the parts of a paper and we outline and provide the appropriate scaffolding for our students. The instructional sequence, I'm sure my other ELA methods people recognize this chart. This is something similar to what we've seen in our methods course. I'm citing Gallagher and the ERWC here because they take similar steps to reading. They both have this pre-reading phase in which we access students' background knowledge and we introduce big ideas and concepts. Here's when we can work on vocabulary for a unit or maybe projects for the unit. Then we move into close reading, and this has multiple parts. This is the big meat to our sandwich. We have a first read in which we're taking a top-down approach. We have our students recognize structure, connect to their schema. We're building in and developing that background knowledge here. We're connecting to context from real world or from which a piece is written. And we are forming a surface level understanding of a text so students grasp the content. So if this is a fiction, they're grasping all that consists within the plot from open to end. And then there's a rereading sequence. When we're doing large books, this tends to be certain pieces that they're responding to, often with text-dependent questions that analyze, infer, and help them notice subtext. And there are a multitude of activities that we can do here, such as KWLR charts, that can broaden our students' understanding of a text and bring it beyond a surface level understanding. Then there's a response and assessment period, and this is where the writing instruction comes in. The SCHMOKER argues the writing should always be in response to text, so this is how we assess in ELA classrooms. So this is an organized analysis, or it can be an argument in response, but it always has to have that academic language portion. There should always be feedback and drafting And we've been taught mostly in methods that we shouldn't assume that our students already know how to write. We need to teach this as well. So academic language, we see this in our EdTPA. We see keywords and action words for students to use, but ZWEIERS and CRAWFORD take it beyond and they incorporate it in discussion and analysis. They argue that there should be 5 core skills: elaboration and clarification. So students don't just simply understand the content, they're able to elaborate on ideas and clarify for others. They should also be able to support ideas with examples from a text, justifying arguments or concepts. They should build on and or challenge others' ideas. So this often happens when we have, say, 2 articles, and they could challenge an idea in one article, or they could use it to build on an argument or build on an explanatory analysis. They should be able to paraphrase appropriately, not just summarize. They should be able to paraphrase ideas, and they should be able to synthesize points and compare and contrast ideas. Specifically in ELA, they argue that students should be able to evaluate importance, role, and contribution of characters of certain aspects of a text. They should be able to take multiple perspectives within a text and outside of a text. They should be able to interpret and infer ideas and devices. They should be able to persuade and argue. They should be able to apply and transfer to new contexts. They should be able to compare the content of one piece to another piece and to other ideas. They should be able to consider ethics of decisions of characters or decisions of the author. They should be able to analyze the craft and devices within a text and create and communicate using language. Integrating differentiated instruction and understanding by design. For this portion, I will be discussing Tomlinson and MCTIGHE. They argue that there are 4 elements to consider with every lesson. Whom we teach, so the students, they're going to be different every year and every batch. Where we teach, the environment, teaching in a suburbia is going to be much different than teaching in inner city or, say, La Jolla. What we teach, the content, it should align with students' schema or it should broaden their horizons. There should always be a purpose. And how we teach the instruction. If we're bringing in SCHMOKER, it should always be evidence-based. So the steps for integrating these two, so we're trying to differentiate for our students, we're trying to scaffold for our students, but we're also trying to understand by design. So we're not always preparing specific lessons for every single different student, but we're being flexible. A major part of differentiated instruction is flexibility. So the first step is identify desired learning results. The second is determine acceptable evidence of student learning. The third, plan learning instruction with the goal in mind. So if our goal is for our students to be able to write a précis, every step along the way in our instruction should be building towards that goal, and it should always be working towards skills to achieve that goal. If we have a larger goal, then we may include other activities that work towards that goal as well. 4, regard learner differences as valuable, not as obstacles. 5, address affective needs. How do we make our students feel comfortable in the classroom, comfortable with an assignment? How do we bring down that stress? 6, periodically review learning goals with the students. 7, assess before, during, and after. 8, be flexible. This is the biggest portion of understanding by design. 9, gather evidence of learning and assessment and adjust based on that evidence. So the ELA EdTPA reads that the central focus should support students to use textual references to construct meaning from, interpret, or respond to complex text. So if we go back to our schema here, we're constructing meaning from a text, we are understanding complex texts, and we're responding complex texts here in our next bullet point. We create a written product, interpret or respond to complex features of a text that are just beyond our students' current skill levels. So this is the ZPD. So when we're choosing our text, we are assessing and accessing background knowledge and choosing a text based on our students. Then, once we have assessed them for their needs, we're able to choose a text that is just one level beyond so that we can proceed in our schema. And then they're creating a written product that shows that they have achieved that level of understanding. So just beyond students' current skill levels is our ZPD. And this overall is how we create an effective instruction in the ELA classroom. Thank you so much.